Lee Finnegan, the stern and passionately protective doctor, had always exuded unwavering resolution. Her life was defined by her love for her son, Finn, and her uncompromising commitment to preserving her family's history. However, beneath her calm exterior sat a lady capable of making merciless decisions when pushed to the limit. Luna Nozawa, her adopted daughter, was a wild card, a young woman whose beauty and charm concealed a cunning mind. Their acts culminated in a plot that shook the foundations of the Forrester, Logan, and Spencer dynasties. The narrative began to unravel months ago, when rumors of corporate sabotage circulated inside Forrester Creations. The fashion business, which had long been a battleground for power disputes, was about to release its most ambitious collection yet, a line that claimed to reinvent haute couture. Rich Forrester, the brand's creative genius, had thrown his heart and soul into the project, completely ignorant that forces inside his inner circle were working against him. Lee, motivated by a desire to protect Finn's future in the company, had grown jealous of Ridge's authority and Steffi's iron grasp as co-CEO. She thought Finn, with his medical education and calm manner, deserved a bigger role, not just as a doctor, but as a participant in the family business. Meanwhile, Luna had her own objectives. She arrived in Los Angeles, young and ambitious, with the goal of making a reputation for herself. Luna, who was adopted by Lee after a turbulent upbringing, carried a mixed mix of appreciation and hate for her adoptive mother. She sought freedom but became caught in Lee's machinations, unable to escape the elder woman's influence. Luna's charm had earned her a position in the Forrester circle, but her devotion to Lee frequently conflicted with her own goals. When Lee offered a strategy to weaken Ridge and Steffi, Luna saw an opportunity, not only to please her mother, but also to establish herself as a fashion powerhouse. The conspiracy began gradually. Lee, who had access to the Forrester family through Finn, began to raise questions about Ridge's leadership. She whispered to key investors about financial anomalies caused by fake documents that she and Luna had painstakingly created. These documents showed that Ridge had been siphoning monies from the corporation to finance a luxury lifestyle, an accusation that, while false, acquired traction among people already concerned about his tumultuous personal life. Luna, an intern at Forrester Creations, used her position to obtain sensitive information, which she then passed on to Lee to help them make their case. The duo's activities were deliberate, with the goal of eroding faith in Ridge but avoiding immediate suspicion. As the stories grew, the Forrester family began to disintegrate. Steffi, who was intensely protective of her father, sensed something was wrong but couldn't name the cause. Her suspicions were initially directed at Brooke Logan, Ridge's on-again, off-again sweetheart, whose history of interference made her an easy target. The tension between Steffi and Brooke grew, with furious arguments diverting attention away from the true offenders. Meanwhile, Finn, torn between duty to his mother and love for Steffi, found himself in a difficult situation. He trusted Lee blindly, oblivious of the scope of her schemes. The tipping point occurred when Luna's ambition got the best of her. Eager to move their scheme forward, she took a hazardous step. She released the forged paperwork to a rival design firm, Spectra Fashions, in the hopes that they would use the information to publicly disparage Forrester Creations. The release backfired spectacularly. Sally Spectra, who is now operating her family's business with restored ethics, recognized the documents as forgeries and notified Ridge. An internal inquiry was undertaken, led by Carter Walton, Forrester's COO and legal specialist, who rapidly tracked the documents back to Luna. When approached, Luna terrified. She attempted to shift blame to an unknowing intern, but her tale crumbled under investigation. Carter's research discovered a trail of digital evidence, including emails, encrypted files, and even surveillance footage showing Luna accessing restricted company systems. The tape also implicated Lee, who was seen meeting with Luna privately and discussing their plans in low tones. As the net tightened, Lee tried to conceal Luna, claiming she was acting alone to defend her son's interests. However, the evidence was overwhelming and Finn, distraught by his mother's betrayal, refused to defend her. The courtroom drama that followed was a spectacle for Los Angeles. The trial of Lee Finnegan and Luna Nozawa sparked a media frenzy, with tabloids splashing their faces across the front pages. Prosecutors portrayed a bleak image of a mother and daughter driven by greed and ambition, eager to destroy a family legacy in order to attain their objectives. Lee's case rested on her assertion that she was preserving Finn's future, claiming that Ridge's leadership was unstable and harmful to the company. Meanwhile, Luna depicted herself as a naive young woman duped by her mother's influence. The jurors, however, remained unmoved. The evidence, forged documents, intercepted communications, and witness statements from Forrester employees, left no space for dispute. On the day of the verdict, the courtroom was packed with familiar faces, including Ridge, Steffi, Finn, Brooke, and even Bill Spencer, who was invested in seeing justice served. When the court revealed that Lee and Luna had been found guilty of corporate espionage and fraud, there was a collective gasp throughout the room. Lee's stern demeanor cracked as she was brought away in handcuffs, her eyes locking with Finn's in a moment of quiet agony. Luna, sobbing furiously, seems to grasp the full significance of her actions for the first time. The consequences of their imprisonment reverberated throughout the Forrester family. Finn, torn between shame and betrayal, withdrew himself from Steffi, unable to reconcile his feelings for her with the anguish of his mother's deeds. Steffi, despite being vindicated, suffered with the consequences at Forrester Creations, where the controversy had harmed the company's brand. Ridge, the ever-resilient patriarch, swore to rebuild, but the cracks in the family's cohesiveness were obvious. Brooke saw an opportunity to heal old wounds and reached out to Steffi, offering assistance in a rare moment of solidarity. For Lee and Luna, life behind bars was a sharp contrast to the glamour they had previously sought. Lee's medical license was revoked awaiting further evaluation, and she faced years in prison. Her thoughts constantly turned to Finn, wondering if he'd ever forgive her. Luna, who was younger and more adaptable, clung to the prospect of redemption, but her aspirations of a glamorous future in fashion were dashed. Their once unshakable link was now frayed by mutual blame and sorrow. In the larger context of The Bold and the Beautiful, Lee and Luna's downfall acted as a cautionary tale about the pitfalls of ambition, uncontrolled by ethics. It was a reminder that even in a world of riches and power, actions have repercussions, and secrets are rarely kept hidden. As the Forrester family went forward, the scars of this treachery remained, paving the way for new dramas, alliances, and struggles in the never-ending narrative of love and legacy. The trial had far-reaching consequences for those involved. Hope Logan, who had been discreetly constructing her own fashion line, Hope for the Future, saw an opportunity to emerge from the scandal's shadow. She worked relentlessly to re-establish trust in Forrester Creations, cooperating with Carter on stronger control and transparency measures. Their necessity-driven alliance prompted speculations of a deeper connection, adding to the Forrester dynamic's fascination. Meanwhile, Bill Spencer, never one to pass up an opportunity, utilized the scandal to establish Spencer Publications as the moral judge of the fashion industry. His media company published exposés on corporate greed, deliberately ignoring his own questionable actions. His son, Liam, torn between his father's manipulations and his loyalty to the Forresters, began to question his place in both worlds. The wounds began to heal over time, but the memory of Lee and Luna's betrayal remained a constant for the Forresters. It was a reminder of how fragile trust can be, even with people closest to you. Finn's journey to forgiveness was long and difficult, but he began to repair his relationship with Steffi, finding comfort in their shared strength. Ridge, the eternal optimist, saw the crisis as an opportunity to relaunch Forrester Creations, starting a new campaign emphasizing authenticity and integrity. Finally, Lee and Luna's imprisonment served as both a punishment and a motivator for change. It compelled the protagonists to confront their weaknesses, rethink their values, and chart new paths forward. In the world of The Bold and the Beautiful, where every ending is just the start of a new chapter, their narrative was a monument to the enduring power of drama, redemption, and unshakable family bonds, even when tested by the fires of treachery. Lee, who had always portrayed herself as an authoritative and confident lady, had always believed she had complete control over every consequence. Whether at the hospital or in her personal life, she considered herself untouchable. But hubris usually comes with a cost. Her inability to recognize her mistakes, her willingness to manipulate those she claimed to love, and her drive to always have the upper hand proved to be her undoing. For so long, she remained ignorant to the devastation she created, believing that her actions were justifiable in the name of protecting her family. That mask ultimately came off, and when the truth was revealed, There was no escaping the repercussions. Luna, on the other hand, had previously been regarded as a victim of her circumstances, a young woman torn between family obligations and her own aspirations. However, her decisions gradually became selfish and irresponsible, and she revealed a part of herself that was no longer innocent. Instead of choosing honesty, she turned to falsehood. She repeatedly broke trust instead of establishing it. The more she tried to hide her blunders, the deeper she slid into deception, and there was no coming back. Her narrative was particularly tragic since she had numerous opportunities to reverse her course, but temptation and pride led her astray. When the day of reckoning arrived, it was almost poetic. Lee and Luna, once bound by blood and secrets, now sat handcuffed together. The courtroom was packed with anxiety as victims and family members waited for justice to be done. No amount of begging or excuses could undo what they had done, and the verdict was unambiguous: guilty. The image of them being dragged away to jail was shocking, but it also provided a sense of relief. For much too long, their shadows loomed big over the lives of others, and only now could serenity begin to return. Their imprisonment is more than just punishment. It serves as a symbol. It demonstrates that no matter how powerful or brilliant someone believes they are, the truth eventually emerges. Lies cannot last, and betrayal always requires recompense. This chapter ended on a bittersweet note for the characters who remained. Sorrow because familial ties had been irreparably damaged. Hope that with Lee and Luna gone, a new beginning will eventually arise. It was a fitting conclusion, one that brought up the loose ends of their lives and reminded everyone watching that justice, no matter how long it takes, is finally served.